When I see someone's phone and it has the red 10,058 notifications, it stresses me out to no end. I can't handle it.
I won't show you then.
Okay.
I don't wanna know about your imperfections, dude. Prefer to leave you on a pedestal so I'll improve. Cause if I'm finding out you know more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It is Basic AF, another show with Tom Anderson and Jeff Battersby. Hello, Jeff. Good to see you as always.
CrowdStrike.
Oh,
sorry.
Lord.
How are you, Tom? Good to see you this morning.
Very good. Yeah, we'll talk about that here in a second. This is
yes, we
episode
will.
40, the big 4-0. So look at us.
Almost as old as I
We've
am.
got it to 4. Well, almost. Little liberty with almost there, but that's okay.
Yeah. Almost doing a lot of work.
Yes. And show notes for this episode will be at basicafshow.com/40.
Look at us. We're super fancy now.
We are. We're going to talk about that here in just a second.
Yes.
But Jeff, we are fortunate today to have a guest. Welcome to the show, Adam Jones.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Yes, glad to be here.
Well, glad to have you.
Yes.
We'll kind of roll into this pretty quickly. So, Adam, you came in contact with Tom via some aspect of social media. It might have been, now that I think about it, because you're using the Clicks keyboard for iPhone. Maybe you crossed paths on the Click keyboard. Clicks?
The Click.
There
I
you
think
go.
that's
Look at
probably
that.
what it
Look at
was. I think that's right.
Look at me. I have no Clicks keyboard, and yet I know what brought you together. So, but Adam, you're the founder and CEO of a company called SkyBound Education. So we want to hear more about that. We want to hear more about you. And but before we do that, we do need to have a little conversation around the old CrowdStrike situation that took place for us yesterday. We're recording this on a Saturday. Yesterday, the world went south. And one of the jokes, Tom, that you made to me shortly after that is it's never the malware that's a problem. It's the malware protection software that usually jacks you up. So kind of a hot mess. I have a friend of mine who works in a local court system, and she contacted me actually early yesterday morning, said that they were completely down. And of course, they're overseen by the state of New York, where I live. So they had to wait for those tech guys to be able to take care of something. She will tell you that the local tech that usually comes in was fishing. So he was unavailable to be able to take care of her. But
Fishing with an F, by the way, just to clarify.
Yeah, not
the PH type.
Right. So yeah, he was out fishing. And, so anyway, they were down for most of the day. I sent her some instructions on, what needed to happen. And finally she was able to get through it. It had, whatever update, CrowdStrike pushed out, there was a file that needed to be deleted. You had to boot into safe mode on a PC and take care of that. Delete that file and start it back up. A little more complicated in her environment because all their hard drives are encrypted using, I can't even remember what one it was right now, but some bit something.
BitLocker.
BitLocker. There we go. Yeah. One of those. There's too many bits. Bitcoin, Bitdefender, bit my tongue. I don't know. So she was able to actually, once she figured it out, was able to take care of it, but they had to put in the decryption key before they could go and delete the file that was causing trouble. So
good thing they had
knocked
that.
a lot of things down.
Yeah.
Hot mess. I think 5 U.S. airlines shut down. Couldn't fly anything.
Banks, retail, ticketing systems, all sorts of things. Adam, were any of the systems or things that you use impacted by that at all?
Fortunately, I wasn't hit at all with any of the tools I use. But, it left me wondering, is too much of the internet in the hands of a handful of providers and service providers?
Absolutely.
And it's just really alarming.
Well, one company can take the whole world down. That's, one dumb push of an update and you take the whole world down. That's really problematic. And it also shows how to your point, Adam, how dangerous it is to have everything in the hands of one or two companies. It's problematic. And one of the things I was reading the New York Times this morning, and an article about this, and one of the issues that's really kind of problematic is that there are very few things that happen to companies when stuff like this happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are no fines. There's nothing. If they do get fined, it's a teeny tiny bit of the overall income of that company, so it doesn't technically cost them anything. I mean, you could say that CrowdStrike, is paying a little bit because their stock dropped 11%. But, for my money, stock market's not really a good measure of anything. It's not, while we use it to measure a ton, that's not really something that I think is valuable. So it is problematic, and we do need to, they should be punished for not doing better testing before pushing something out that it probably cost hundreds of millions, if not maybe $1 billion in revenue yesterday. That's a lot of money.
Did the Times article you looked at say anything about they probably won't release it, but like the footprint of the update, right? Because typically with those big updates, those get stages as they're rolled out. And so like it impacted a lot of things, but I haven't seen anything yet that said, well, it was, estimated 10% of their footprint, or it was 50% or 100%.
I didn't see anything
feels
like that.
It was a lot, obviously, because it took down a lot of things. But I'm just wondering like if there was any talk around that.
I didn't see anything like that. And this was a teeny tiny little file that made some back end changes. It was
Yep, bad file.
The file that you had to delete was basically a little text file.
Well, part of the problem is with those types of applications, they need to have, I'll put
full access.
Quotes. Yeah, it's such a low level that, they're effectively spyware, but it's from the good guys. And
supposedly from the good
because
guys.
They monitor everything that happens.
Correct.
On the system because, and they're using heuristics and AI and all these other things to try to anticipate, somebody, there's an intrusion or there's some type of thing going on. And so that's what got them. It was a file that just caused kernel panic basically. And it was nasty. But so.
Yeah, big time. And I'll put a gift link from the Times article. We'll put it in the show notes just so you can read it. But it's problematic. It's something to be aware of. And we're kind of at the mercy, whether it's Apple or Microsoft or, whoever it is that we're dealing with, or in this case, CrowdStrike. You're at the mercy of somebody doing something simple and stupid that costs everything. By the way, it also points out that if some actual bad actor had an intention to do something pretty horrible, you could disrupt the whole universe as far as we know it.
That's what I was thinking about too, because this was a simple mistake more than likely, and those things happen. But what if it wasn't? What if it was on purpose by a malicious actor?
Yeah. Yep. We'd be cooked.
Yeah.
There's so much of what we're doing is
everything's connected these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So big cheers and respect to all the IT staff that have been working crazy hours and stressed out, and to get this resolved. It's not been good. A lot of social posts, a lot of gleeful Mac users, a lot of those posts though, uninformed because it's not, it's Windows, glad I have a Mac. Well, it really wasn't Windows per se. It was a bad update that caused that. And if you had a home PC not running this software, you weren't impacted at all.
Correct.
Right? Other than if you had services that you relied on, of course. But yeah, so don't get too gleeful. The shoe could always drop and go the other way at some point. We're dealing with a minor thing at work related to an endpoint security product that's keeping people from copying files and deleting files on a Mac, by the way. So they're not impervious to these types of things.
No, absolutely not.
So,
absolutely not.
All right, enough doom and gloom. Let's get to the fun stuff.
Yes.
So,
all right, Adam, why don't you talk to us about, first of all, who you are, and then into SkyBound, and then we'll talk about your tech stack.
Amazing. Yeah. Thanks for having me again. My name's Adam Jones. I'm a former high school English teacher and administrator, but I've always just had this passion as well for technology. And 3 years ago, I started a company called SkyBound Education. I have 3 full-time colleagues, so we're a small but mighty team of 4, and we work with several school districts in Indiana, where I work and live, and it's a lot of fun. We help schools plan strategic projects and initiatives aimed at accelerating student learning. Technology ends up being a part of that, especially with AI tools, and maybe we'll have the chance to talk about some of that. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with you, and it's great to scratch that itch of talking about tech today.
Yeah. So tell what exactly does SkyBound Education do? So I note you put in our notes that you do strategic planning. It looks like grant writing or grant implementation. So why don't you give us a little more detail and what kind of benefits you bring to the school districts that you're working with?
Sure. I think there's a few different categories of work we do. After the pandemic, well, throughout the pandemic, really, students were hit really, really hard going to that virtual instruction component. And there's all sorts of studies at the national level and here in our state in Indiana that say the academic impacts were quite dire. Reading achievement fell, math achievement fell as well. And so schools, when they opened back up, brought students back into the classroom, we're really grappling with how do we catch up? And that includes things that, of course, relate to literacy and numeracy and the content areas, but also just social, emotional health and well-being, because that sense of isolation was not great for mental health either. So SkyBound was able to get off the ground because our state put together a grant opportunity for schools to come together and work in a consortium model to talk about how are we going to get out of this, what sort of strategic plans do we need to put in place, what projects and initiatives in terms of curriculum and instruction and allocation of financial resources will make the most of this unprecedented amount of federal money. If you remember, there were multiple aid packages passed by Congress to try to get schools caught back up. And so SkyBound came along 6 districts at that time to help think about how do we make the most of these dollars so that they really have an impact and that the work is sustained over time. And so we help schools develop strategic plans that got down into not just personnel they might hire and roles and responsibilities, but what are the curricular tools you're going to use? What tech are you going to leverage to personalize learning? How are you going to communicate that with families and the community and create a sense of urgency around, hey, students were really hit hard by the pandemic and we've got to surround them and come together to get better. So that's a big part of our work. And another part is every year the federal government allocates a lot of money through something called Title I. And Title I funds a lot of things. I won't go into the weeds, but one of the things it funds is supports for schools that are struggling, have struggled for multiple years, and they're eligible for something called school improvement grants. And SkyBound's been fortunate to work with schools in Muncie, Indiana, Newcastle, Indiana, a couple schools in Indianapolis to secure those funds. And this is millions of dollars in funding that go to these schools. And so we help come alongside them and say, what are you going to do different with your educational model now that you've been given millions of dollars to get a proof point for how you can accelerate learning, how you can use these funds to have higher community engagement in your schools and really get better outcomes for students.
Awesome. So let me ask then, what does this look like for students? So when you come in and create a strategic plan, get the money to be able to come in to do whatever it is you're doing, whether it's hiring teachers or changing your programs, what does it actually look like for the students?
Yeah, I'll give you 2 concrete examples. So in Muncie, Indiana, they received a grant to support 3 of their lowest performing elementary schools. And we helped them review and select a brand new core reading curriculum that was aligned to something called the science of reading. Basically, this just wealth of research saying, here's how students learn to read. We need to adhere to these practices and use these types of materials to move the needle. And so we help walk their staff through that selection. And then we help them select a consultant to go in and provide job embedded support as they were using that throughout their first year of implementation. And we've already seen huge academic gains just in 1 year. And we're going to continue to support them for the next 2 years. This is a 4-year grant cycle. So that's an example of, starting at the high level of selecting a new tool, but then getting into the weeds of here's what it looks like for a fourth grade teacher, a second grade teacher to use these materials, to track the data effectively and provide students, personalized supports. Then at the latter end of the K-12 continuum, we've done some work in Newcastle, Indiana, where and I'm really, really proud of this, we've met with over 100 employers and community stakeholders to talk about what sorts of work-based learning experiences and career exploration experiences should students in middle school and high school have so that they are more focused in their high school career and they know what sorts of internship and job opportunities and post-secondary opportunities will allow them to pursue their future. So we've helped that school, for example, create something called graduation pathways, 14 additional ones to the ones they already had. We've helped them launch academies within their high school. One's called an early college academy, and students can earn what's called an Indiana College Core. They get 30 college credits while they're in school, and a handful of students can earn their associates while they're in high school. And we're also launching an agricultural academy because that's important in that community, and technology-based academy. So it's creating experiences and structures and systems that try to reimagine what school can be.
Awesome. I like that. I like that a lot. I'm curious, does it, one of the things that I've noticed in the many years since I graduated from high school, we used to have a lot more technical things going on at school. And, that was right at the beginning of the computer era. But what we really had was we had like construction classes that you could take and auto mechanics classes. And a lot of those things seem to be missing. Is there anything like that coming into place with what you're talking about?
This is such a great question. You told me this was only going to be a 30 or 45-minute podcast. Yeah, how long? So I think the pendulum has really shifted. So when I was coming through school, it was the late 90s, early 2000s. It was all about college. Neither of my parents went to college. They grew up rather low income, and they viewed that as the surest vehicle for my brother and I to have upward economic mobility. And I was really blessed. They sent me to a great public school, and I was on that college prep track and went to Indiana University, had a great experience. And to your point, Jeff, like career and technical education was sort of had a stigma almost, that vocational piece. And that's really shifted, at least in our state. Now there's a lot of talk and emphasis and funding for, hey, if there's a certification you can earn in high school that gets you an awesome job the day after you graduate, let's celebrate that. And maybe it doesn't end, that education doesn't end the day of graduation. Maybe there's a 1-year certificate afterwards or an 18-month program or an apprenticeship that you step into. But there is much more respect and promotion of those opportunities. Like welding, for example, is a really high demand wage career that also has a great wage where we live. So the pendulum's come back to a more balanced place, I think, where we're saying there's many pathways to success, and we need to celebrate and honor people that want to work with their hands and do more technical things too.
I really like that. That's
good. I like it.
Great to hear. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Very cool, Adam. Thanks so much. Yeah, we'll try to keep it to 45. Yes, not always
We're
that
not
easy.
hitting 30. There's no chance.
Yeah. I'm looking at the clock already, and it's like, okay, well, keep
Hey,
on going.
I'm here as long as you need me. I'm grateful.
Yeah. Well, we want to keep everybody listening here.
Yeah, I understood.
And that's the bigger issue.
We could always split it into 3 parts if we had to.
Yeah, right. We can continue this next week. Anyway, all right, that's very cool. So you are clearly a tech aficionado, someone who looks like has a few toys outside of, strictly speaking, the Apple realm. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your tech stack and what it is that you use and why, what these things are and why you're using them?
Yeah, so when I worked in schools, it was pretty much all PCs, and certainly Google and their Google Workspace ecosystem, at least in schools, is really, really important and prominent. But I've always been drawn to the Apple hardware, and I think their ecosystem continues to get better and better with the iCloud updates and the way everything talks and works together. So, on an everyday basis, I've been using the iPhone 15 Pro. I think the Features are wonderful. I love the camera on it, the video. I'm really surprised with the 4K 60 and how good that video quality looks. I'm using that as my webcam right now. I know this is an audio, but it's pretty neat to be able to throw that on top of your MacBook and get a high quality image. Are you doing that too, Jeff?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love that. And just bought a relatively affordable, I don't even know what to call it, but it's something that sits on top of your screen and holds the phone magnetically. So yeah, and I use a MacBook Pro, and I do have the M3, which is really, really nice. It's blazing fast for everything I need it for. I do some YouTube recording and uploading, and it's amazingly fast compared to the Intel MacBook Pro I had a few years ago. I could keep going. I'll pause there, though.
No. Well, Apple Watch?
Yeah. I've got the Series 9. I upgraded. I had a Series 4, and I really wanted the always-on display. I just think that is really sharp, and it's also much snappier than the Series 4, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah, I had the original one, and I still have it, but obviously I don't use it for anything because it's kind of worthless. I'm on an Ultra, the original Ultra, which I like quite a bit. It's good. Although I have said, and I'll say it again, if Apple just did a fitness device that maybe could play music and podcasts, I'd be down for that.
I heard you mention that, and I thought, man, that's a good idea. Do you think they would ever do a Ring like Samsung has just done?
I don't know. Tom, what do you think? I mean, I'd be down with that too, but that's Tom giving it the ugly look.
It's the only look I have.
No.
I think it just depends. Like I could see them doing it because if you think back to the 2000s when the iPod was out, they had such a wide range of players. Remember, they had the Shuffle, the one that looked like the little gun pack for a while that was just like a stick. And then they had the Nano and everything like that. And so I could see at some point that they would do that. Maybe it would come in, a little lower, but Apple doesn't usually like to go too low. And so I think that's probably the thing is how can they make it and maintain those 35, 40% margins they like to have?
No, I could definitely use one of those. I'm happy with my watch, but that would be a game changer for me, for reasons that I've stated previously. And as far as software, what are you using, Adam? Like to keep track of your life, to keep track of your business?
Yeah. So my business, like I said, schools in Indiana at least are all about the Google apps. The vast majority of schools use Google Docs and Drive, Slides and Sheets to do their day-to-day work. So my company works out of that, but I am really passionate about one particular piece of software, and I'm just a huge evangelist for it, and that's Hey Email. Have either of you used that?
Have not. I was checking it out. So tell us why.
So it's developed by 37 Signals. They make some other great software tools like Basecamp, which is a project management platform. But Hey, I just agree with the philosophy and the way the user experience is designed. For going back years, I've been a huge fan of Inbox Zero, and I know that some people think that's going too far, trying to clear out your inbox.
Just ask Tom.
Are you an Inbox Zero guy, Tom?
No.
He's an Inbox 10,000 guy.
Okay. When I see someone's phone and it has the red 10,058 notifications, it stresses me out to no end. I can't handle it.
I won't show you then.
Okay.
It's not that bad, but it's creepy. Well, it was pretty low, and then because I actually did go through and just marked all that stuff red. It was mainly my iCloud account that had it all, and I actually had it fairly managed. But then yesterday, when the CrowdStrike stuff hit, we started getting all of these notifications in my work email. And beautiful timing on my part. I was off yesterday, and I'm not going in and clear those out till I go back to work on Monday. So right now it's a little elevated, but anyway.
What a great day to be out of the office. That's perfect.
Yeah. Thankfully, we're not a CrowdStrike customer, and we're also very heavily Apple there. We're like 95% Apple, and so our teams anyway weren't as negatively impacted as a bunch of others, but we did have a lot of services now. So,
yep. So I'll give you a really quick reason why I love Hey. I could talk about this for 30 minutes on its own. I might have a YouTube video at some point. So anyone that ever emails you hits what they call the screener. you have to let them into what they call your inbox, IMBOX, your important box. And so if you get certainly spam, but also just like those vendor emails, Tom, I imagine you get a lot as a IT guy, and you're like, I don't want to hear from this person again. You don't have to mark it as spam. You don't have to send it to the junk folder. You just click no, I don't want to hear from that person. And it doesn't hit your inbox. I like that a lot. And then for those newsletters you do want, so I read like James Clear's Atomic Habits 321 newsletter.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a great one. Several others. You say, hey, I want to get that every week or whatever the cadence is, but I want it to go to my feed. And it's a separate part of your email experience, and it scrolls through more like social media. And so you can get to it when you need to. It's not something that urgently requires your attention. So basically you can set it up so your inbox, you're really only hearing from people that you need to hear from or a message you need to take action on. And then for those things you need to save or get to later, you can set them aside. And that's what they call it, your set aside board. They also have a mass reply all feature. So if you get a lot of comments or questions around the same thing, you could say, I'm going to reply all with the same response. I haven't used that a ton, but I could see that being helpful if you communicate similar FAQ information to a lot of people. I just think the app's super well designed. So I think they would say they're actually not an inbox zero designed app, but that's how I use it.
Very cool.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. I looked at it briefly, but I can't remember if I did the trial or not. Maybe they didn't have a trial. I don't remember. But what mail providers does that support at this point? Is it Gmail, I'm sure, and some others?
Super great question. So when you sign up for Hey, and it's $99 a year per person, they did just release within the last few weeks a family plan. So you can have up to, I believe it's 6 total people on a family plan, which is $179 a year. Mm-hmm. You get a Hey email address, but you can also bring in your Google accounts. I believe it supports Microsoft 365. And I've set up I use iCloud custom domain for my website, adamjones.ink, little plug there. And so I use Apple's custom domain through Hey as well.
Nice.
So,
yeah.
Kind of captures everything there.
Yes.
It definitely looks interesting. And they have standalone apps? They
do, yes.
Okay.
Apple and Android. Okay. And the Mac OS app is really great too. And I'm a huge fan of shortcuts, using my keyboard to navigate things. And I think the shortcuts are really well thought out.
Nice. And it also has a calendar, it looks like, too.
They do. They released that a few months ago. It does not sync your Google Calendar events, and I live in my Google Calendar, and so for that reason I've actually not adopted the calendar portion. I wish that I could. I would really give it a try. It looks beautiful. It's got all sorts of nice UI elements, but for me, until it can work with the Google Calendar, it's just not practical for me.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah, I wonder, have they said anything publicly that they're working on that?
Not publicly. I've emailed them and say, I'm a huge fan of your company. Is any chance this feature's coming? And, I understand their reluctance to commit to any timeline.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like that's something they would add, because having to change your calendar platform is a huge ask of potential customers. Like, that seems like to be a big obstacle. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, just switch calendar providers. But okay. So, hey, for that, anything that you saw at WWDC for the improvements to mail, right? So they announced those improvements coming to mail. Like, they'll put the usual AI stuff on it, but then the categorization and things like that is kind of Gmail-like. Anything there that you think would sway you back to maybe the mail app, or is Hey that far ahead that you think?
So I'm willing to try it. I've tried going Apple Mail both on macOS and iOS, and for me, it's just not been as good of an experience as Hey. Mm-hmm. But with the categories you're mentioning, I did watch all of WWDC, listen to your podcast summarizing what was announced. That was a great one. I'm going to give it a shot. I want to see about the categories. I want to see how easily you can direct certain emails to different categories, because I've grown really, really grateful for being able to send things to that feed and scroll it a couple times a day whenever I feel like it, mm-hmm. and not worry about missing something important.
Right. Yeah, that does sound intriguing. Maybe I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Great. Just what I need. Another subscription.
Yeah, exactly.
Another $100 a year.
Right.
You know, tip
Pretty
money.
soon the bank account is empty.
Yeah.
You also, and I'm not really, I've heard of it, but I'm not familiar with this. The Rabbit R1. Talk to us.
I've got this bright orange box. I know, again, this is audio, but I'm holding up the Rabbit R1. So there were two things announced at CES, Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas this year, that really caught my eye. And one was the Clicks keyboard, and one was the Rabbit R1. It's an AI first device that can use a proprietary set of large language model or AI reasoning, as well as Perplexity and Wolfram Alpha. And it was pitched at CES as something that you could teach using the web app to do various tasks for you. Now, to be clear, that functionality is really not there yet. That's supposed to be coming later this year. But right now, this is, I think, a really fun device to take pictures of plants and animals and things out in the world and ask what you're seeing. I also love to hand it to my kids. I've got a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. I'd rather hand them this than my phone, which has, my banking apps on it, Amazon, which who knows what they might want to buy. And they can ask it anything. So right now they're trying to persuade my wife and I to get a puppy. And they've been researching what kind of dog breeds would be best and asking all these factual questions. And, I don't know if you all have kids or what age they might be, but it's really nice to offload a couple thousand of those a week to this little device. So I've got lots of YouTube videos on there. There are some cool things you can do with it in terms of it also does voice recording, and then you can query your recordings with just your voice. So I've used it a little bit driving back from a meeting, for example, and I'll just summarize the meeting for myself. And then there's both a transcript and the ability to ask later what happened during that meeting.
Nice. How much storage does that have?
It's 128 gigs. What's really not optimal right now, and I'm really involved in the Rabbit community. In fact, I was just in their community highlight yesterday.
Saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I would tell them this, and they need offline functionality, because there is 128 gigs on here, but right now everything's going to the cloud and coming back to the device, because it would store quite a few voice recordings and photos and notes.
Yeah. And I remember when that came out, MKBHD kind of cooked it.
Oh,
yeah. But
if you Google this device, I would say almost all the initial reviews are incredibly critical. But, it's $199, and I know that's a luxury item for, to have $200 to kind of be in a beta hardware space. But I enjoy being on the journey. They've released updates every week since this thing's come out. And so it's kind of like a little gift. You open it up and see what new surprise there's going to be every week in terms of functionality.
Yeah, and I watched I guess, I can't remember if it was the video you just did or the first one, but it was the one where you were talking about the shopping list, so like the grocery list. And what I thought was pretty good is in the video you were telling it, add these items to my groceries list, and I think it was, what was it, steak and mushrooms and something else. I can't remember what it was. Sounded like a good dinner, but what I thought
will be
was
over shortly.
What I thought was good, and it sounds like to go back to those reviews for a second. I don't know if it was released prematurely or not, but it was released in a very rough state. It sounds like. But one thing I noticed though, and I was kind of looking at this thing when it came out because it looked really intriguing, because it was, like you said, it was $200. So it's not unreasonable like the Vision Pro.
Not that Tom would have any experience with that.
No. But you said something there. So you're like, you went through and you just kind of talked those things through. And then at the end, you're like, oh, I think it was broccoli or something. And you were like, so my wife knows that I eat vegetables. But what I thought was pretty good was that it handled all of that extra conversation without really any issues. Like Siri would have fallen apart and been like, I don't know. But you did that in that natural conversation. But in the video, you said, okay, so what's on my shopping list? And it was like, oh, steak, mushrooms, broccoli, and it parsed out all of that extra talk without really having any issues. So I thought that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it really is. And again, I would say it's kind of It's in development. There's no question. But some of that stuff, and I had a comment on one of the recent videos I posted, and it said, hey, Siri can do this. And respectfully, and I love Apple, and I cannot wait to see what Apple Intelligence does. Siri cannot do some of that today. It's not a great product.
No.
So play music.
Right. It's really good at playing music through Apple Music, 100%.
Not sometimes. I'll ask it to play something, and it's like, oh, you wanted to hear this country music? No, I never want to hear country music.
Right. So I'm hoping Siri 2.0, or if it's even going to be rebranded, I'm hoping it is a lot more capable.
Yeah, because that's one of the things I use the watch for frequently is to put things on the groceries list. And it's just a reminders list that I share with my wife. And I use the watch for it. And you can do multiple things, but it's kind of picky in how you put it there because you'll say, add steak and mushrooms to the groceries list. And it sometimes will do steak and mushrooms as separate items. And then sometimes it'll just do steak and mushrooms as one item.
Right.
And you say, that still works. I still see it, but it's not the same. So I thought that was interesting. And we talked a little bit about the Clicks keyboard, which you've got there. Is that the London, what do they call that color? London
fog? Yeah,
fog
this is London fog. London gray, I believe. Is it London fog?
I think it might be.
I should know that. Anyway, yeah.
Don't you hate that? I can never remember the name of anything.
And it comes in 4 colors. And Tom, did you get the Bumblebee yellow?
I did. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm a little jealous of you, Tom, because I wish I'd gotten that yellow. And I looked it up. It's called London Sky. London
Sky.
Yeah. It looks appropriate.
I've kind of grown to this place. I like the minimalism of Apple's products, and I like the titanium look. I have the natural titanium iPhone 15 Pro, and I think that looks really professional. But for whatever reason, I'm kind of craving like more brightly colored, more interesting personality in my tech devices.
Yep. Yeah, that yellow one is, sometimes I use it just because I like the way it looks. And it's a vibrant yellow, looks really great. How's the typing for you on that?
So I love typing on it. I definitely type faster on screen than with the clicks. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's almost like a psychological thing. When I slide it on, I'm more in a thoughtful mood. I'm not trying to reply to messages or write emails as fast as possible.
Right.
I really like kind of how it feels and scrolling with if you hit spacebar, it scrolls down like a web page or a news article. I really, really enjoy that. How about you?
Yeah, I like pretty much like you. I just found it's impossible. I cannot type quickly.
Oh, really?
But it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just I have to slow down and be more deliberate. I tend to go back and forth between the clicks and my normal Apple case, and I think that is detrimental to some degree because I'd never do enough typing on the clicks keyboard to really become super proficient with it. And because like the letters are fine, like when I'm typing, I'm typing, hey, what did you think about? That's all great. Where I tend to really have to stop and look are for the special symbols because I don't use it frequently enough to have those mapped out because it's like a shift key almost you have to hit to get, the apostrophe or the comma or the exclamation point, things like that. I do like that it frees up the entire display. So if you're typing a note, you get the full page note on the iPhone display versus the soft keyboard taking up half of it. But yeah, I go back and forth a good bit.
Yeah, and to be transparent, I go back and forth too. I do not have it on all the time, but I will genuinely say I love typing on it. And I get what you're saying. It's not as intuitive as that on-screen keyboard, and certainly not as fast. I don't know if either of you swipe to type using the Apple keyboard.
Yeah, sometimes. That's another thing. Not a lot, but it works surprisingly well, sometimes better than when I type.
Yeah, it works so well for me, and it's just like I haven't timed it, but I can crank out some messages pretty quickly swiping.
Nice. So last stop on this little train, Tom asked both of us if we were using betas, and you said you were. Tom, you didn't say whether or not you were that I saw. Are you on any betas?
I have not yet.
Okay. So Adam, you're our guinea pig. Tell us your beta journey so far. How's it been?
Yeah, I've been downloading them as soon as possible on all my devices. I don't know if I'll do that next time.
We appreciate the honesty.
Yeah. The main reason is, and I posted about this, I think, on Threads, and then some people rightfully criticized me. And I stepped in it, and I want to own that in case anyone's listening. I was like, hey, this is really hurting my iPhone battery life. And they're like, that's why it's a developer beta. And I was like, yep, that's totally fair. That's on me. So, but the public beta that just came out seems really quite stable. It's been good. I love how the dark icons look in dark mode. And I think the Apple icons look great. And a lot of the third-party icons look quite good. I could go on and on, but that's one of the things that I've noticed right away.
Nice. Jeff,
I usually wait a
do
couple
that. You
cycles.
usually get in though, right? More towards August or so.
Me, yeah.
Yeah,
That's and I probably will. I like to let at least one public beta cycle go before I go too crazy. And I
might
won't
do the phone
studio
today.
computer.
Maybe
You might do the phone today.
Adam's
Tommy.
inspired me. Maybe I'll do the phone today.
Woohoo!
So
I
I'd like to do a Mac, but like we record on my MacBook Pro, so I don't want to mess with it because the Rodecaster runs into it, and I'm like, that's going to be a disaster. I just don't want to do that. iPad, I edit on, so I don't want to mess with that because I've gotten so adapted to using the pencil to edit with Ferrite that I just do not want to go back to mouse and use GarageBand or something. That just would drive me nuts. So I'm hesitant to do that. My Mac Mini is kind of like the central repository of the photos library and all the backups and everything. So I don't really want to mess with that. So that really just leaves the work laptop.
Have you seen the
there you
new?
go.
Have
So
you seen
I'm
the
gonna do
new
it.
way that Photos is displayed? Photos
Only
are
in the-
Only in the videos, yeah.
Yeah, only in the keynote.
I'll tell you, for me, that took some getting used to. I would love your thoughts and feedback on that. It's been getting some heat online of perhaps being a little over designed.
Yeah, I did see some of that feedback too. So I'm interested to try that. Where's it caused you the most friction?
I've got a couple apps, and I won't name them here, but that like weren't optimized for the beta, and that's okay. That's on me for going in and being a first adopter, or early adopter rather. But I think overall it's been a really good experience. I like iPhone mirroring on the Mac OS beta.
Cannot wait for that.
That's really cool. It's nice to pull up a couple apps that don't have a good experience on the Mac and just see it right there on your screen.
Are you a journaler? Do you use journaling app?
Oh, that's a great use case. So I hate that there's no journal app on Mac OS. So now I can type with my keyboard using iPhone mirroring. So yes, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and that might be enough to get me to try it again because I just did not want to have to sit and just use it on the phone. I like the phone that it's on the phone because like when I first tried it, I'd set up the notifications. So I was like, hey, it's time to write. And then it does the recommendations based off of it. And I like those. And so I like what the phone can provide, like with the contextual awareness stuff, but I just didn't want to do it on the phone all the time. So yeah, I might dip into that. So
if I could plug one more free app, this one's totally free. So one of the updates with Mac OS Sequoia is Windows tiling, where it's going to snap to, which Windows users are probably like, we've had that for decades or however long.
What?
But there's a free app called Rectangle. Do either of you use that?
No.
no, I've heard about
I'm
it.
familiar with it.
Yeah.
And it's been wonderful. I've used that for a couple of years, and you can set up hotkeys. And so if I almost always have, like, my browser is 2/3 left of my screen, and then the right third is like Apple Notes or my email. And you can just set up hotkeys to just click those windows to those spots. And that's really, really nice.
Yeah, that is nice. I use Magnet and very similar, but
Yep.
yeah, no, that's good. And it is nice to see Apple's still working on the window management thing. I think we talked about that in probably 3 episodes, just at different things, talking about apps we use and stuff like that. But and as far as your productivity stuff, are you pretty locked in with reminders, notes for that, or do you use any third-party apps there?
Yeah, great question. I've had a journey. I feel like that meme where, there's the bell curve where you're starting out novice and then you try all these things in the middle and then you end up back where you started. So I use Apple Notes for all my note taking. I used to love, and I still love how it looks, Bear. And I think you use that, Tom.
Yeah, you and I talked about that a little bit on Threads when we first connected there a while back.
Yeah, Bear is so beautiful. Like the design is just so great, but it doesn't do handwriting recognition yet that I know of. And I take a lot of handwritten notes in meetings. It makes me feel more present than typing my notes.
Yep.
And as a result, you can query your handwriting in Apple Notes, which I think is so cool.
Yeah. Bear does the handwriting, but it doesn't search it.
Yeah.
So that's a gap there. I don't know if they'll address that or not, but Notes is solid. And then reminders for your task. I think I said you even use that with your team there, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I've tried Monday, I've tried Basecamp, which again is same group of people that makes hay. So I think really, really highly of them. Both those tools are just more than my small team of 4 needed. And so with reminders, we each have a list where we can see what each other is working on. And then if there's any task we don't want to share out like necessarily publicly, we could have our own list as well. And I do a grocery list with my wife, and then some YouTube and like blogging production stuff as a list. But I love the view as columns layout, which I think that came out in iOS 17.
I believe so. Yep.
Yeah. I really like that, being able to drag and drop between columns. I kind of do a now column. I need to be working on this right now. A soon, that's kind of like the next week or two. And then a later, I want to make sure that it's off my mind and I'm going to do it eventually, but it's not super urgent.
Nice. Yeah, I like all that.
Yeah,
it's good.
Cool.
Maybe we'll have to have you come back on when we do a big super productivity tips show. Sounds like you're dialed in on that stuff. Yeah, that'd be fun. Okay, so
alrighty.
Where can people find you on the socials? And we talked about SkyBound, but I know you do YouTube and everything too. So where should people go?
Yeah, I would love to connect with people. My name is the same across everything. I have this super, super common name, Adam Jones. So I added INK at the end because .com and .net were taken. So my my website is adamjones.ink, and my social handle everywhere, including YouTube and X and Threads and Instagram, is Adam Jones Inc.
Yeah, that's funny. I looked you up on YouTube and it brought up the guitar player for Tool.
Oh, for Tool? Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, well, that's not the one.
Or maybe it is. It's just being sneaky.
No, I'm not that good at guitar for sure.
All right. So that leads us to the end of the show. And Adam, really appreciate you coming on. A lot of really good information. Want to encourage everyone to go out and see SkyBound Education and check Adam out on YouTube and other places. As a reminder, we take email at feedback@basicafshow.com. You can send us a direct message in whatever your current podcast listening app is. So if you go to the show notes, there's an option for you, the show notes or the details on the show. There's the option for you to be able to send us a direct message. If you want us to respond back to you, all you have to do is put an email in there, and we'd be happy to do that.
And we have a new website.
Tom. We do have a new website.
We do. It's got a great guests page, so you'll see Adam up there. So if you want to see his links and everything, we'll have that there. And also on every page, there is a little microphone down in the bottom right. If you click or tap on that, you can send us a voicemail. So if you've got a comment or any question you want to ask about any of this stuff, you can send us a voicemail. We'll play it on the show as long as you don't curse us out.
Absolutely, we'll do that.
And if you curse us out with good technique, we might still play it.
Actually, we like that.
So do check that out. We are. Yeah, but Adam, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll have you back. We'd like to do that at some point.
Thank you. Thank you both. It's been a joy.
No, thank you. Reminder, show music, Psychokinetics, Celsius 7. Check them out on whatever platform you're listening to. And then we've got Randall Martin Design, who's done those geeky... and as Adam can now see, pretty accurate robot heads. And Randall does great work. We highly recommend you check Randall out if you have any kind of design needs.
We do. All right. Well, thanks for being here, everyone. Adam, thank you again. And until we get together for the next show, have a great rest of your day, rest of your night, and we'll see you then.
See ya.
Imperfections do prefer to leave you on a pedestal, so I